So I definitely understand this post-sermon blues. It is the most frustrating thing in the world once Sunday is over. I can't even explain to you that there's like a dark cloud of depression that comes in. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And I think one of the big reasons, this nagging question is, what's the point? What's the point? Did I accomplish anything? What you teach? Is anybody paying any attention? Is anybody listening? Does anybody care? And this eats away at you. Now, there's a phrase in that article that I'm going to go back to, but I want to pull up a different article that came out relatively close to this one that says top 10 sources of discouragement of pastors. All right. Now, number 1, conflicts, complaining, and murmuring. Yeah, okay, you get that in church. Lack of fruit and spiritual maturity in church members. Lack of fruit and spiritual maturity in church members. They have a quote here. I invested 2 years of my life. They're no different than they were 2 years ago. What's the point? Another top 10 source of discouragement from pastors. Apathy. The low level of commitment of so many of our members really discourages me. Sometimes I wonder if my ministry is making any kind of difference. Lack of spiritual maturity, apathy. There's just an apathy. And you're like, does anyone here have any passion or fire for the things of God? Does anybody? And when you start feeling that way, then here's what happens. You start going, well, I preached. Glad that's over. And then you start thinking how foolish of an endeavor it is to preach. It's hard not to. I think every pastor feels this to some level. Some are very good at convincing themselves of a reality that I don't think exists. But I think all pastors feel this way. But this is the thing that got me, all right? Listen to this again. And those who wake up, this is back to that original article, those who wake up some morning to discover that all the years of preaching truths they never experienced themselves bored a deep cynicism into their souls. Now that hit me. And here's the reason why. I have talked about this over and over. I'm going to sound like a broken record here. There is a Christianity. I always put Christianity into different categories to try to explain what it is, right? We have kind of a completely carnal, fleshly Christianity where people want to claim to be a Christian but live any way they want to live, right? They just do anything they want to do. And then you have this kind of middle-of-the-road Christianity. I'll call this kind of the mediocrity of Christianity. It's just kind of like, well, I'm trying to live a Christian life, and yeah, there's some things I want to do that I know I can't do, and I'm trying to be good. But there's kind of like there's a level where they're not going to go beyond that in any way, shape, or form, and they're kind of just committed to be right there. And then there's this Christianity that we sell. It's the Christianity we preach. It's the Christianity we sell. And I don't think it has anything to do with the reality that people actually experience. The experience is over here in this very carnal, fleshly one, this mediocrity of one. And then there's this like crazy kind of Christianity that we put on the poster. We put on the flyer. We put on the Instagram post or the Facebook post. This is the Christianity we sell. And this Christianity will say things like, when you come to faith in Christ, you are indwelt by the power of God, and He will help you overcome sin, and you can be victorious, and you can be more than a conqueror, and you can do all things through Christ. And we preach this powerful existence where we have a power that those poor lost people don't have. And the power of sin has been broken in our lives, and we can conquer, and we're victorious, and we can overcome every fear and every doubt. And we can just, like, it describes some Christian life like on an info commercial, and you're like, whoa, I want that. And they're like, wait, but there's more. And that's how we sell it. And that's how pastors preach it. And this article is claiming that some pastors wake up one morning, let me read it again, to discover that all the years of preaching truths they never experienced themselves brings about a deep cynicism into their souls, making them question, like, what's the point of all of this? Are we all just fooling ourselves? Are we all just pretending? Because the person who may have the greater sense of, wait a minute, we're preaching all of this. Where's the reality? And not only the reality in the pastor's own life, but the reality in the congregation. For example, hey, the Bible is the Word of God. We love it. We cherish it. It is a treasure. It is our spiritual food. Okay, man, that's what Christians believe. I'm just going to come up there and I'm going to give them some things to read and some things to study, and they're just going to be, woo, they're going to talk about it, right? I'll start each Monday with saying, here's going to be our spiritual focus for an entire week. And then everyone in the church, they're gonna email you talking about it. They're gonna pop into live chat and go, hey, this week's focus is manna. Let's talk about it. Last week's focus was Ephesians 3:19. Let's talk about it. And then you start realizing that you can't get them to talk about it. And you're kind of like, what's going on? And that begins to create a cynicism. Now, the article goes on to say that once a pastor starts this feeling like this helpless, hopeless, like, I just want to quit, but he doesn't seem to find an honorable way out, that pastors subconsciously, then they go to moral failure to find a way out. Now, I think in some ways that's a cop-out. I think sometimes moral failure has nothing to do with a subconscious way of wanting out of ministry. I think you could argue that in many cases, once they become frustrated and depressed and dejected, that it can lead to problems spiritually and failure. I think it can. I think that's how come congregations have to constantly be asking themselves, what can we do to help the pastor? And usually it's small things, like live out your Christian life, be excited about God, show up to church, boom. Okay, that's all it really takes. Just live out the truth. Just live out what you claim. Right? Be passionate about the things of God. Hungry for the things of God. Hunger for the things of God. Show up. That can transform everything. But that part really hit me. That there's truths we proclaim that I don't know if we ever stop to go, wait a minute, we claim this, but do we truly experience this? Now, as soon as I read that article, I went to my email today, and look what emails showed up today. All right? And everyone marveled. Jesus performed miracle after miracle during his ministry. In Mark 5, he expelled a legion of demons from a tormented man, completely restoring him. This man experienced the life-changing power of Jesus and proclaimed how much he had done for him. Everyone marveled. Have you experienced this life-changing power? In this message from Pastor Jeff Shrevey, I think is maybe how you say his name, discover the deliverance Jesus brings and how he can make your life a marvel to others. Now that is the typical way Christianity is sold. Life-changing power. A power that no lost people have. A transformation. It's this power. And we preach it, but what happens when you don't seem to be seeing it or experiencing it? Where's the life-changing power? If all of the people in front of you profess to be Christians and they're Christians, their lives should demonstrate a life-changing power. What does that look like? You say, well, it looks like they, lost people are out at the bar getting drunk and sleeping with a prostitute and doing drugs. They won't. Okay, but there's lost people who don't call up prostitutes or go to the bar and get drunk. Okay, there's lost people who live relatively moral lives. So the life-changing power can't just be, well, I used to drink, and I don't do that anymore. There's plenty of people who are lost who don't do those things anymore. They changed for a number of reasons. Maybe they got married. Maybe they decided they were an alcoholic, went to Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, and they're clean now, and they changed their life. Well, so their life, your life, where's the life-changing power? It has to be more than just these external, these really bad things we don't do anymore. It has to be more than that, right? And I think it has to go to loving your enemy, turning the other cheek. I think it has to go deeper. Loving God supremely. The things of God are the most important thing to you. It has to go somewhere to that. And I think in many cases, we don't experience that life-changing power, or we don't really see that life-changing power, and it leads to a deep cynicism not only within the pastor, which can make him want to give up, it can lead to cynicism within Christians themselves. I just thought it was interesting that this article mentioned this preaching of truths they don't experience. And then I get an email about a sermon about life-changing power. Life-changing power. And you're like, okay, yes. And let's go look at all the people who heard your message of life-changing power and compare it to normal other lost people. You can always find the lost people who are doing horrible things, and you can compare yourself to them, and you can make yourself feel like, ooh, look at the life-changing power. But again, there's plenty. I worked with all kinds of lost people who just live basic moral lives. They didn't go to church. They didn't really believe in God. They lived, basic moral lives. Oh, there were certain things they did that I wouldn't do as a Christian. There were some things like that. But where was the dramatic? I'm supposed to have a power that they don't have. And I think that sometimes maybe what we do is we sell Christianity in such a way that some days some pastors wake up and go, man, that doesn't seem to describe us. And then it leads to problems. And I think it can happen. And so we have to rethink about a lot of these issues. We have to rethink about a lot of these issues. But that article really got my attention. Again, it is called, let me pull it up here. I think every pastor should read this. If there's a pastor listening to me, you should read this. Why do some pastors sabotage their own ministries? Why do some pastors sabotage their own ministries? Again, I may not completely agree with their assessment that, hey, pastors start feeling this way, so they just say, hey, self-destruct button. I'm just going to destroy my ministry and everything so that I can get out of this. Maybe there's some psychological reasoning for thinking this way, but the part that really hit me, and let me read it again. Now I'll just read this whole paragraph. These haunting questions are the spoken underbelly of the pastoral calling. They're asked by those torn in two by the burden of their calling and the desire for escape. Those who have invested too much time and money building a platform they can't afford to lose, and those who wake up some morning to discover that all the years of preaching truths they never experienced themselves bored a deep cynicism into their souls. It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. And I think that kind of article needs to be read not just by pastors. I think church members need to read it too. I think I'll say this for the benefit of church members. If you go to a job and you never can really see the fruit of your labor, right? You never really see, you can't see that you finished it. Like, you work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and you don't really have anything that you can point to and go, whoa, I did that, or oh, I did that. You have no idea what you're doing a task, but you don't really know if it ever accomplished anything. You don't see any benefit from it. You don't see anything. You don't really have an idea. At some point, you will become disillusioned, disgruntled. You'll lose passion. You'll become, it just becomes like a meaningless exercise. Just like you're a hamster running on a wheel. You run on that wheel for 8 hours. You get off the wheel is still there, and you didn't go anywhere. Many people would get upset and want to find a new job. Well, think about the life of the pastor. You know how he determines any possible success of his ministry, at least from an earthly perspective? It's you, the church member. And if you don't demonstrate something, then the pastor feels like he's been on a hamster wheel, and he's like, well, I got off it. I'm still right there. It doesn't matter what it is, because the church member